Urban Live Events. My name is Melissa Yumbia from Urban Live Events. We're design and decor specialists. A lot of what we spent our time doing in this COVID season is having online conversations, encouraging our stakeholders and shareholders to dream about the events. So when things open up, then it's as easy as pressing play. The announcement by the president to open up the economy is very timely, considering that a lot of organizations had started to open up. The hotel industry is one of those organizations. And so we have 3 panelists lined up this Friday. We have Aja Shah of Trademark Tribe, who's the Deputy Corporate General Manager. We have Bernard Itebete of Sarova Hotels, who's a Corporate Sales Manager, and Rogeri Mahiti of the Nashipai Resort and Spa Naivasha, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing. We're excited to hear the innovative stories based on what put in place to make us feel safe. Tune in, subscribe, so you can get a notification to join us on Friday, 10th of July at 3 p.m. on YouTube Live. See you then.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa Yumbia, and we're just about to start our live session discussing the reopening of the hotel industry in Kenya. So allow me to start by introducing our lovely panelists. We'll start with Aja Shah from Trademark Tribe, who's the Deputy Corporate General Manager. She's a seasoned hotelier with over 10 years of experience. She studied hospitality in Les Roches. I stand corrected. Has a diploma in hotel management and a bachelor in business administration. She's been working with the village market and under the hospitality industry. And we're really excited to have you on board to just hear a lot more about what the brand is doing. And Aja, you could say a big hello to.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Melissa, for that great introduction.
And next we have Bernard Itebete, who's the Corporate Sales Manager at Sarova Hotels. He's been in the industry for 20 years. He has been with Sarova for 8 years and 7 years with the Hilton and 3 years at the Boma. So we're really excited to hear a lot of what he has to share under the Sarova group today. So hey, Bernard.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Melissa. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. And we have Wajeri Mahiti, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing for Nashipai Resort and Spa based in Naivasha. She's experienced in marketing and communications for over 15 years. She's been with Nashipai from 2009 when they started. What we didn't know about Wajeri before was that she was also a banker before moving into the hospitality industry. So, hi, Wajeri.
Hi, everybody.
So we're looking forward to having a lot of interesting conversations around what each brand has done to get prepared as we reopen. Some have been open. So I think one of the things that we'll start with is to just quickly maybe just go around again. Aja, you could tell us a bit more about the Tribe Trademark, followed by Bernard and Wajeri, just to get to hear a bit more about the brand and the locations. Yes, so you have the floor.
Okay. So if anybody hasn't heard of Tribe and Trademark, we are 2 properties that are 5-star and 4-star hotel in the Diplomatic District adjacent to the Village Market. So Tribes are ultimate luxury property. It's a sort of a New York chic with an African essence. There's over 1,000 pieces of unique artifacts all around the continent that are displayed throughout the hotel. Trademarks are 4-star brands, so we're primarily a conferencing hotel. We do have 2 sorry, I pressed mute by mistake. We're a conferencing hotel with 2 spectacular restaurants, Harvest and Hero, with 215 bedrooms, and it's more of our business hotel. We have more corporate guests than anything else there. Thanks. Over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Aja. So we'll, Bernard, you can tell us a bit more about Sarova Hotels and some of the locations that you have.
Great. Thanks again. Saruva Hotels is the oldest local hotel brand in the country, and we have properties in the most prime locations in Kenya. We've got 2 in Nairobi, 5-star Saruva Stanley, Panafric, a 4-star property that we are currently renovating. In Nakuru, we've got Saruva Woodlands, located in the town itself, and Saruva Lion Hill in the Lake Nakuru National Park. Saruva Mara Game Camp, which is a luxury tented camp up in the Mara, and Saruva Shaba up towards the north, just after Isiolo in Shaba. And of course, Saruva White Sands. If anyone has been to Mombasa, most certainly you've heard of Saruva White Sands. It's great to be here, and I can tell you that as Saruva Hotels, we are really looking forward to receiving a lot of you as guests and many others as we reopen all our properties. Thank you.
So I'm seeing Mr. Hersey has joined us, so I'll allow Anjari to continue with introducing Enashipai, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Hersey, in just a bit.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Melissa, thanks for the invitation. It's great to be here. Here representing Enashipai Resort and Spa. Enashipai is a resort based in Naivasha. We're the only 5-star hotel in Naivasha. So that's something that makes us a little bit distinctive. We're located on South Lake Road, which means we have direct access to the lake. So some of the things that people do when they come to Enashipai, one of the big things they do is, take a walk down to the lake to have a lovely view of the hippos. So the hippos are always out there eating. They usually come out at lunchtime because that's one exciting thing to do there. Lake Naivasha has been known to be a fantastic place for bird watching. So there's 450 bird species in Naivasha, so that's an exciting thing to do. About the hotel, we have 135 rooms. And what is exciting about Enashipai is that there's a little bit about everything, a little bit for everybody to come into at the hotel. So it's great for people with families. We have wide open spaces. So it's a great place to just come and, hang out with your families. If people who want to do their meetings, Enashipai is a great place to come and do your meetings there as well. So looking forward to reopening. We're excited to be on this show. Thanks.
Thank you, Ajay. And so allow me to introduce Mr. Mohammed Hersey. Welcome to the panel. We've just done a round of introductions. So allow me to introduce you, and then you can say hello to us.
Thank you.
So Mr. Mohammed Hersey graduated from our very own Utalii College, has an MBA in Regent Business School in Durban. He was elected as the KTF chair. Mohammed, also known as MH, is a long-serving chair in Mombasa and Coast Tourism Association. And we look forward to a lot of those conversations and your input in regards to the conversation around reopening of the hotel industry. So Karibu, you could say a quick hello to us.
Thank you, Melissa. Good afternoon, fellow panelists and all the attendees. Good to be here, and thank you for bringing us together, and looking forward to share ideas on how we, as we prepare to come back. We've all been underwater, so to speak, for the past couple of months. So we need to come out now and do what we do best and continue to, present Kenya's hospitality in the best way possible. Chairman, Kenya Tourism Federation, which brings together the private sector tourism players under one umbrella, from hotel keepers to operators, travel agents, airlines, all of them. And it is the body that also sits on KEPSA, where we have a seat on the governing council to represent matters tourism. And we use that seat to lobby the government and all other organizations when it comes to matters tourism. My main hut where I work is the Pullman's Tours and Safaris, and we also run the Baobab on the South Coast. So good to be here and looking forward to interaction. And yep, thank you.
So I must commend everybody for keeping time, and we're really excited for the conversation that we're going to have today. The objective behind it is to give a platform for us to be able to have discussions around what we've done to get prepared, or to ready ourselves, especially COVID specific, as we reopen. And for some of the institutions that have stayed open, we also want to hear what you've put in place. And at the end of this conversation, we hope that everybody will come out of here having all their questions answered. So as we proceed with the conversation, please feel free to send us your questions so that we can address them as we go along. It's a very interactive platform and discussion. I think even in the background, we've talked a lot about this is the hospitality industry. So we're really trying to be hospitable and make you feel comfortable even in this conversation. So feel free to ask a lot of the questions. If you have specific questions you want to ask a particular panelist, do tag them in the question and we will keep going into them as we go along. So allow me to delve into the question, and I will redirect them as they come to the specific people. But I'd also like to work with the format where we also allow everybody to speak, because I feel every organization has something to put into every discussion. And so I think one of the things, and again, maybe let me introduce what we do. I think I went right into introducing everybody and forgot about myself. My name is Melissa Yumbia with Urban Live Events. We are design and decor specialists. And part of the reason why this discussion is happening is because an integral part of our business, as we feel as stakeholders, is the hotel industry. We work with a lot of these brands, and without you, a lot of our livelihood would not be there. So from that angle, I think one of the things I'll ask, which is from an event, of course, I have an events background, is each of the locations I've been to has something unique about it in terms of the look and feel and styling of the locations. And I'm a bit interested to hear how, or the stories behind the design and decor of each of your locations. And so I'll start in alphabetical order. So Aja, you're up.
Sorry, Melissa, can you just repeat that question?
The question is basically, what's the concept behind the design, the look and feel in each of the, so exactly like for you would be Trademark and Tribe. So what's the story behind it when it comes to the decor?
Okay, so Trademark actually opened in one of the years where we had a lot of unrest due to the elections. So the entire concept behind the entire, Tribe. So the entire concept behind the Hotel for Tribe was one planet, one tribe. And we wanted to remove some sort of tribalism and sort of celebrate Kenya as one. So, and then we realized that the whole continent is sort of underspoken and has so much to offer that we opened up sort of the first bespoke boutique African themed hotel, where there's over 1,000 pieces of unique African art, as I said before. All of the hotel rooms are designed around all of our natural elements that you can find in this country. So you'll see a lot of rock, a lot of sandstone, just a lot of very natural elements, woods. Trademark, on the other hand, was supposed to be a boutique hotel. It started off as a 3-star hotel and very quickly went into a 4-star hotel. Just because as design, we wanted it to be something very intellectual and very smart, but we didn't want intellect to mean technology or just technology. So we wanted intellect to come out of all different aspects of the hotel. If you look at some of our restaurants, I'll just mention 2 that are open right now. You can see Harvest. So Harvest is inspired by Kenya's sort of true love for meat. That's why it's an open like grill brasserie. It's focused on like sort of farm to fresh ingredients. And it's really well paired to take you through a proper culinary journey. So if you ever enter this restaurant, you can see, again, lots of wood, lots of natural material. And then it also features sort of a curated selection of wines from all around the world. So we have over 100 different like varieties of wines, something that you can really enjoy. Kenyan food with a slightly different ambience and expectation. And then one of our other restaurants, and you'll notice everyone is very different from each other. So Hero, it's a new kind of eatery. It really speaks with fantasy and individuality. It brings sort of fantasy and reality together. So the space celebrates heroes from comics and our own community. We've created our own local leaders as a comic book in the menu. And the menu features sushi, but it's not a Japanese restaurant. It's a very creative space.
Right. Thank you, Aja. Okay, so I think we'll move to Bernard. And Bernard, Bernard and Mr. Hesse, your backgrounds are really helping us feel like we're somewhere in the Mara or Savo. So thank you for enlightening us or reminding us where we could possibly go. So Bernard, let's hear a bit more about Sarova.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much. Yeah, my background is in the Mara. That's one of our locations, Sarova Mara Game Camp for sure. And if I just may start with that, Sarova Mara is basically designed to be at one with nature. If you walk into the property, you'll find, first and foremost, it's not all brick and mortar. We've tried to do away with too much concrete. It's a lot, using a lot of locally sourced or natural materials like wood, lots of wood. The rooms are primarily tented, so you get that bush feeling, but with a modern twist on the inside. And it's about being at one with nature, and that's you'll find with all our lodges. That is Shaba, Nakuru, and Mara. You'll see that unity with nature. We've tried not to interfere with the area too much in such a way that it always feels like it's naturally flowing from one section of the hotel, one section of the lodge to the other. Sarova, let's start with the Stanley. Stanley is a heritage hotel. Now, heritage, since 1902, this hotel has existed. And since 1902, this hotel has always been part of the history of the city of Nairobi. I mean, lots of great things have happened at the Stanley, everything from the first beer being drunk there, which is Tusker. The first Kenyan beer was poured and drunk there. Nairobi Stock Exchange was born at our exchange bar. Then it was not an exchange bar, but lots of historical things have happened. So the Stanley is pretty much pre-colonial, historical, and takes a lot from the history of the city and the history of the country in terms of the periods. Now, we have Sarova Pan-Afric also in Nairobi. Now, Pan-Afric, as the name suggests, is very Pan-African. We've tried to reach out or tap into our local African history or Kenyan history. Everything from the political personalities who stayed and utilized the hotel, and also partially the history of the post-colonial history of this country. So Pan-Afric, again, bit of historical. Then in Nakuru, I've mentioned about Lake Nakuru National Park, in which we have Sarova Lion Hill Lodge. Now, Lion Hill Lodge as well is designed also to be pretty much merged with the environment. If you walk into the lodge, you'll find that the lodge, the rooms are not all in one block. They're all dispersed around the property on a slight incline. And you've got quite some attractive views from that point. And it's one of the places that's very easily accessible by your regular saloon car. You can do that. other than just having to, drive up there with a four-wheel drive or SUV. Sarovar Shaba. Shaba has been in the news some time back, and not because of the unrest on that side. Shaba and around that area was the area where we had Joy Adamson, who had sort of like adopted some lions. If you remember, there's a movie called Born Free. Now, Born Free was roughly scaled around Joy Adamson's activities in that particular area. So we've tapped into that, and the Shaba Lodge sits on a spring, and it's a very refreshing experience. You walk in and all you're hearing is sounds of water running down to the river. It sits on the Wasonyiro, the banks of the Wasonyiro, and has some very beautiful views from across the river. Sarovar White Sands Resort. This is probably one of the most recognized names when you think about a resort on the coast, on the North Coast. And more so because it is popular with locals, both for leisure and conferencing. Indeed, Mohammed Hersi, as one time, has also sat as GM and in charge of the coast region. So I know that he's very familiar, and he would probably even say a few things about that. But that said, Sarovar White Sands is all designed to be a relaxing and very open resort, good for family, good for individuals, very convenient for corporate travel, very convenient and well equipped for conferencing. I mean, just a nice, relaxed experience. All our properties, incidentally, are also tapping into technology. So things like Wi-Fi are things that you get easily at all our properties. So I'd just like to welcome everybody back.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. So Ojeri will allow you to take us through a quick run through the look and feel behind the brand.
Okay. All right. Well, as a Naivasha-based hotel, we took a lot of inspiration from the town. Like, let's take, for example, the name Enashipai. Enashipai is a Maasai word, and it means a place of happiness. So a lot of people ask, why did you choose a Maasai word? Yeah. So Naivasha as a town was originally inhabited by Maasai. And even today, we still have a few of them living there in their nomadic lifestyle in the areas close to Kengen, near the park and all. So given that the Maasai were a big part of the history of Naivasha, naturally, it was a great place to draw our inspiration. The architectural design, you'll notice our buildings have very high-pitched roofs and exposed gumpoles in a lot of the areas. These were inspired again by the town. So we took inspiration from Mount Longonot, which is about 15 kilometers from the hotel. And the gumpoles are generally organized in the shape of a cactus tree. So you'll see a lot of spaces, you'll see the three-piece design on the gumpoles for the exterior of the rooms. So part of the designing of the hotel was, we wanted the place to feel natural. You wanted the place to feel airy and fresh. So you'll notice, as opposed to a city hotel, our rooms are not arranged in one building. So rooms are spaced out throughout the hotel, and we try to build around the trees. So what a lot of people say when they come to Nashville, they say, it's so relaxing, the air is so fresh, you just feel at one with nature. Yeah, so that's it. For the interiors, we went for an Afro-chic style. So we again kept the Maasai inspiration, but with a modern touch, hence the Afro-chic concept. So take, for example, the beds in the rooms, which is one of our most distinctive features. And I say this gauging from the pictures that our guests take. So if you see a lot of our traveler photos, you'll see people taking pictures of themselves in the room. So the bed is a very iconic design that's very distinctive to Enashipai. The headboard has a beautiful Maasai necklace design, and I totally love that. It's so beautiful. And the rest of it took the design of a zebu cow horns, right? So, and the The headboard at the hotel, I believe, is one of the most distinctive features over and above the architecture. So when people come to Anashipai, we want you to feel like you are free. It's wide open spaces. The rooms are spacious and luxurious. So that is, I guess, in terms of what we were thinking as the hotel was being designed. I think in terms of the color, sorry, before I finish, in terms of the colors, you'll notice very warm tones across the hotel. So you'll see the reds, the oranges, the browns, which if you look at the Maasai wear, you'll see a lot of that color scheme coming through. So that's one great thing. So the whole idea is, we're a warm and hospitable hotel. So you want you to come in here and just feel at home. And I think the other thing I really enjoy about the hotel is the artwork. So a lot of the artwork was hand painted by actually one artist who's based right here in Kenya. His name is Wanjuki. Allow me to mention his name because I thought he did such a clever job with a lot of the artwork. So he did that. And another distinctive piece, I think, is the lovely reception counter at the Ntuma Conference Center, which was handcrafted by another local artist. His name is Expedito. That guy could carve. So I think when I look around the hotel, some of the interesting things I see that really brought out the theme and make the place distinctive is the artwork and the carvings. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I just felt that it was important to get that out there, because a lot of the times when we go in, much like when you work into events, unless you've been in the back burner of planning it, sometimes you won't realize the small details that go into it, and it's important to hear the stories behind it. So thank you all for sharing, because now it makes me think about it. The next time we're coming in, we'll pay a lot more detail, attention to detail. So with all these beautiful institutions that that exist, and a lot more in the country, then comes COVID-19, drum rolling its way in, and basically brings the economy down to its knees. And I can only imagine what I know what it has been for us in the events industry, and I can only imagine what it is for the hospitality industry. And I mean, considering that this is a $1 billion industry. So I'd like to hear from each of you just what that effect has been, and what has that situation, or what has that environment been like since the first announcement, or it could have been before from an international perspective. So I think we could start with Bernard.
Yeah, well, for sure, that was the announcement of the cessation of movement affected all hotels, primarily the international movement. Obviously, we rely on a lot of inbound travel. And this is not just for leisure, but also corporate travel, where most of the city hotels actually derive their customers from. Now, with that meant that in essence, our usual guest was not going to be allowed to travel in. Now, for the local or domestic travel, the fact that now you could not, for example, travel to Masai Mara from Nairobi, it just meant, for example, that nobody was going to travel to the Masai Mara unless they were in the Mara themselves. Now, the lodges that we host, White Sands in Mombasa, primarily hosts guests from Nairobi for leisure and from other parts of the country. Now, Mombasa itself was locked down, which means you could not get in. Or you could not get out. So in essence, again, our business, both for leisure and corporate and meetings, was affected. Now, in essence, this was shutting us down. For a hotel and the number of units that we have, this has taken a great toll. And with the guidance of our MD, I mean, it's been tough. It's been difficult, but I think there is still light at the end of the tunnel, because the locals are now beginning to appreciate, for example, use of hotels for other purposes. We have tried to readapt our rooms, for example, at Pan-Afric, where we have commissioned some of our rooms to actually be used as private office spaces. So in the event that you need to work not away from home, but away from the office, you need not walk into the office, but you can get into a nice, secure place. This also made us think about our business in a slightly different way. So we've got to be totally innovative to just survive.
Okay, so out of the locations, how many did you have open during the era before the cessation was lifted?
We've had our 7 hotels open. Now, the only thing is that as the cessation of movement was announced, the only hotel that we kept open was Sarova Pan-Afric. This was very fortunate in terms of location. It also served other purposes. For example, we had the initial curfew time, which was 5 to 6 p.m. It meant some organizations who had staff could not get home. So we provided some initial accommodation facilities to some of these organizations. But that said, still in terms of the movement, in terms of guests, it still remained a trickle when you look at the total number of guests that we normally host on a daily basis. So everything else we were forced to close down. That is all our lodges, Nakuru, our Woodlands Hotel, of course, which usually plays host to quite a number of meetings, and the lodges as well in White Sands. Now, this we have to bear in mind that Nairobi is the source of most travel to other destinations in this country. So that being said, if you can't move out of Nairobi, you cannot then do anything beyond the boundaries of the city, which means all other properties would not be able to host anybody.
Okay, so for Aja, for Trademark and Tribe, maybe tell us a bit more about what's happening with the Tribe and what the situation has been for you during this time of COVID. Were you open? Were both locations open? Were they closed? What has that looked like for you?
So we saw sort of a 95% cancellation for the entire year by the end of March. And I think, like the entire hospitality industry in this country, it was kind of a shock at first. We started renovations at Tribe in January or December last year. So we decided that we could move all of our, because we have people who live in the hotel. So we decided we could move everybody who lived in Tribe into Trademark and just shut down Tribe fully, and then break down the entire property at one go, because what we were trying to do was do block by block to accommodate the guests who do live with us and all the other business that we had at hand. So Tribe is still closed and probably won't open, we're fingers crossed, until October or end October, when the entire property should be back up and running and fully renovated. At Trademark, we still see cancellations, and we're receiving cancellations past October now. So I think it's the reality has hit worldwide, where before I think a lot of organizations were quite hopeful that every month they were like, we're just going to wait another month to see if we can come and see you. It's a bad situation. However, since the restaurants have opened, you can see that a lot of people do get cabin fever. So at least we're kept busy at both of our outlets, and we're a quarantine hotel. So at least there was a little bit of business trickling through the system in that sense.
Okay, so I'll move to Ajari, but before I do that, I think for Mr. Hersey, I'll also rope you in to hear it also from a lot of what's had to kind of come into the front banner in regards to KTF and also from the Coleman direction. So, but before then, let's hear from Ajari how that's looked like for and Ashipai at this time since COVID struck?
Okay. I think we've all seen how the pandemic has impacted the hotel industry. We are one of the industries that's been hardest hit. For us at Ashipai, it wasn't until the first case was discovered in Kenya that we started to feel the impact. So in January, February, it was business as usual. We're all, in as much as it had hit everywhere else in some parts of the world, until the first case was announced here, we were still doing business as usual. So by middle of March, we started receiving cancellations. And by the end of the month, March, it became apparent that we needed to close the hotels as the inquiries had stopped coming through and the cancellations were overwhelming. In fact, every day we just come into work and we're just dealing with cancellations over cancellation, yeah. So by the end of the month, we took a decision to close the hotel. And it was a very painful decision because even in the worst of months, we never planned for a zero revenue situation. Yeah, so the last 3 months have been fairly tough. And, some of the tough decisions we took were to send our staff away on unpaid leave as we assess the situation. But I think it hasn't been all bad. In the last 3 months, we took some time back, we had some time to handle critical maintenance issues. Those things that you can't quite handle when the hotel is running, yeah? So this time, has been a good time for the hotel to step back and do a bit of renovation. We also took time to, to review our offering and plan for our next phase. Let's just call it an Ashipai 2.0. So I think we'll be talking more about that and what will be coming through this new season. So I don't think it's been all bad. There's been a lot of reflection. Even the staff themselves have had, we've stepped back a bit and just taken some time out. Had an opportunity to learn a new skill, to read the books you just couldn't read. Our industry is notorious for long hours. Yeah, so some people don't get to see their families for a very long time. So I think, what the pandemic has done is just put everyone on pause, step back, sit and reflect and, spend time with your families. So some people have come back saying, I didn't even realize I had such creative, exciting children because you're now spending so much time with them, yeah? So I think those are some of the positives I would say that have come out of the pandemic, yeah.
Okay, and that's exciting to hear because I was actually having a conversation recently with somebody on a personal level. They were saying they haven't saved as much on their hospital bills as they have in this duration, basically as a family. I guess with all the colds and flus that usually go around. And even I'm sure the hospitals have been less stressed about, most of the issues that we go in with, everybody cleaning up, sanitizing, and just being aware of the environment. So it's also positive for us. Maybe people are now being forced to employ social distancing. We all know how queuing in a bank can be or certain places. So, Mr. Hersi, allow me to ask, and I can imagine when all this was happening and the announcement of a pandemic hitting the world, I can only imagine what that looked like from a KTF perspective. Just share with us a little bit of what's been happening in the back burner and fires that you had to fight or systems you had to sort of put in place.
Thank you, Melissa, and thanks to all the panelists for their sharing their experiences. It is something that none of us expected. And 2018 was such a good year. Then 2019 was even a better year. And in all our talks, everywhere we met, we said how 2019 was a great year. And we're looking forward to even a better year in 2020. And it was quite a special year when you look even at the numbers, 2020. It's a little bit to do something with vision. When you say you've got a vision, 2020 means there's clarity. Little did we know that it was going to be a very stark reality for all of us. Then again, we also expected, 2021 will be another great year before we go into our usual normal cycle of elections. This is what we all planned for. Little did we know that we were going to throw out of the window all the strategy we laid out. It just became useless when the virus was mentioned initially. We thought it's just one of those viruses that will appear somewhere in China or somewhere in Asia, and that will be the end of it. So we never made any big deal out of it. Life went on as normal. January, February, then we started taking notice that this thing has now gone to our source market, which is Europe, before it crossed over to the US. Suddenly it became, well, wait a minute, I think all is not well. So the rest, as they say, is history. And the moment the first case was mentioned here, now, unfortunately, Africa, in the eyes of the Europeans or the Americans or anybody outside there, they consider Africa that continent which is risky. You know, they consider us to be the risk continent. Uh, so they quickly started moving out, and people have been repatriated, and people booked the next available flight. And things were happening so fast to the point that airspace was being closed. And many Kenyans also were caught flat-foot in foreign land. Some of them, for the first time, they were in some land they've never been to. So if you've been to some cities that you've been used to, that's a little bit better. You find yourself in a place like Peru, you wonder how you're going to come home. So a lot of people were stuck. So in our business, suddenly from highs of 80%, we went to ground zero within 10 days. That's how delicate it was. So speaking for the Kenya Coast, for instance, which is predominantly international tourists who come in for the beach and a bit of safari, all the resorts virtually became empty. And that eventually ended up also in the lodges, and nobody was left out. You know, even Nairobi, which has never closed. Now, we've had our own share of challenges as a country to do with terrorism, but all of those are very specific, you know, to Kenya. And we will put our acts together and we say, this is what we have done. And because the threat is physical, it's a physical threat. You can put security, you can improve a lot of things. And we did that. And we went out and told the world, this is what we have done. Our government did what they could. But this time around, you're facing a threat that is unseen, invisible, you can say it. And it's affected the whole world. And for the first time, I noticed that everybody wants to die closer home. Everybody wanted to get home. Even Kenyans who are out there want to come back home. So the way we are today, everybody has gone back to ground zero. You are basically on reset mode. And new things have come up, including how we are meeting right now. You got in touch with me last night, and I accepted the invitation. And here I am sitting in my office, still working and participating and engaging with 45 other participants and beautiful panelists as well. So there's a new norm, things that we are doing. But when it comes to business, the losses are huge. We've never experienced anything like this before. And I feel for the real investors, the owners who put in their investment, and because they were looking forward to a great 2020, and they're looking forward to another beautiful 2021 as well, a lot of them invested. And there are many hotels today, as we speak, who are still renovating. And many of them also servicing loans at outrageous interest rates by our Kenyan banks. And this is where we expect the banks to also understand, because even if they took the hotel today from you, who will buy it? Because the mess is global. There'll be no buyer will come for your hotel. If you can't sell an apartment in Kilimani or Lavington, what makes you think you'll sell a hotel? So I think my message to banks, and this is what I always say, that they need to be very careful. At least they have an investor who has commitment to the country, and they should work with them in these trying times. So for the next, 12 months, 18 months, they need to assist us so that we go back to normalcy and we start, doing business like we've always done. As Kenyans, we do what we do best. Hospitality is our line. Smiling is second nature to us. But now we need to come back in a strong way, because in the past, when Kenya is bouncing back, you are alone in that business of bouncing back. And you're competing not with many others. But for the first time, when you look at beach, a beach destination, for instance, you'll be competing with almost 70 other destinations around the world. In totality, over 150 countries that all look at tourism as a source of income will be fighting to say, you know what, please come to us. And you know what, you'll be targeting the same client who is terrified and above all, equally broke. So for the next 18 months, can I say 12 to 18 months, it's not going to be easy. And we need to be strong. We need to work together, be it tour operators, be it hoteliers, be it as a destination, so that we can, see 2021. 2020, these last 7 months has been quite painful. Let me say one more thing. A lot of people talk about March when the announcement was made. That's the time we started suffering. Many of the hotels actually do their business on credit. And even the travel agents do their business on credit. So you get paid 60 months or 90 days later, 60 days or 90 days later. So it means the business is transacted even sometimes in December, you've not been paid when COVID came to town. So in essence, you've not been paid January, you've not been paid February, you've virtually not done any business in a nutshell. And one of the major culprits is, of course, government of Kenya as well, who have not paid travel agents, have not paid hotels. Today, close to 1 billion shilling is sitting out there. So when we say, how have we been affected? Put aside forward bookings. Even the business that we've already serviced, we're not getting paid. So I really feel for hoteliers, I really feel for everyone, and together we should be able to come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hersey. And it's true, and it's also interesting to see how we're also still looking at the silver lining behind it. And I think a lot of the conversations here will also be, just like you've said, we're already halfway through the year. How do we survive the rest of it and support each other? Because the truth of the matter is, for us to be able to get through this, we have to pull together as individuals, as brands. So this is the right platform for us to have that discussion. And just to bring it back to something you mentioned, you talked about the hospitality industry. That's primarily what our businesses or the businesses of these panelists here are about. So how now, in the reopening of our hotels, are we going to now blend the balance between being hospitable and being COVID compliant? And so I'd like to hear what balance is, it's how do we make it? Because a lot of the times, especially even for the local market and international market, people come to interact. It's the warmth that we have as a country. So how do we make strike a balance between the two? And I think I could go with Bernard first.
Well, hospitality industry already has a very high standard of hygiene. Now we just have to, we've had to now step that up another level. I mean, we're, if I may just compare, we're probably at the hospital level now, because we are not just testing our food, we are now testing our staff beyond what we used to test them for. So we basically have had to introduce new measures or new operating procedures that ensure that the guest is secure and safe health-wise, by doing certain things like just ensuring that we're keeping a social distance acceptable, 1.5 meters. I mean, we're having to recreate some of our standards with respect to human health, that is staff health, in terms of food handling and food preparation and management, in terms of property management, cleanliness standards, and even engagement. I mean, you will have a lot less face-to-face meetings with your clients than you had before. Now, things like rooms, you know, in many cases, you would find a situation whereby you would have a room cleaned and it's left just locked. But now we probably have to now seal the room such that the guest coming in is the one who's breaking the seal on assurance that they are the first people actually occupying or getting into that room. For sure, we have had to really step up our game, working with our partners who provide us with cleaning materials and cleaning chemicals and so on and so forth. And then consciously ensuring that we always adhere to our own standards. So we adhere to what we have decided, what we have set to do. because, you know, hospitality is about trust. If I don't trust that I have got I have actually been taken care of health-wise, then how would I stay? Why would I stay? And why would I come back if I stayed? You know, or why would I eat at X and Y hotel? In that respect, you know.
Okay, so allow me to interrupt and also, not interrupt, but thank you for those insights, Bernard. I'm seeing a lot of people still joining in. Thank you if you're just joining us now. We're deep into the discussion and we're now going into the details of what we're doing in terms of systems and structures that we put in COVID specific. So thank you for joining us. We're seeing some of the early birds. Allow me to just say a quick hello to some of the people already saying hi to some of the brands here. We have Sally Mahiti who's saying, she can't wait to come back to Enashipai. We have Joffrey Kiptum, Frida, Eunice. Everybody is just really excited to be plugged into this conversation. So keep those questions coming, keep the comments coming in. We are definitely going to keep sampling them as we go along. So allow me to move to Wajeri. Tell us a bit about what you've put in place in regards to, and I will go into the deeper details in terms of the rooming and everything else, but just the initial contact in terms of what that looks like, trying to strike that balance of locking in the client and making them feel welcome at your hotel. Okay.
All right. I agree with what Bernard had said, is that, you know, already hotels were held to a very high standard of cleanliness and all. But onto the people and person-to-person interaction, I just say, I think, first of all, if you're running a hotel and your people are not hospitable, you're in the wrong business. If you're going to be in the hotel industry, the first thing you should be thinking about is, I need to up my hospitality game, yeah? So hospitality is second nature to hoteliers. So to me, hospitality is non-negotiable. You know, whether there's COVID or no COVID, you must remain hospitable, yeah? But having said that, I think what COVID will change about our hospitality is things around, say, social distancing, right? So what comes natural for me to come and, you know, welcome you, greet you, and, you know, want to just help you around with the things. So those are some of the things that will change about how we demonstrate our hospitality. So things around the mask wearing. So it's going to be a bit, I guess, more difficult to get the cues that's from the individual, because you only have the eye level to deal with, yeah? So I think that's what hoteliers are gonna have to do, is to go beyond the smiles and the handshakes to welcome guests and show that they care, right? So care is going to be a big thing, I think, post-COVID, and how well we respond to our guests' individual needs will be the big differentiator. So what I'd say is that, you know, here at Enashipai, we will continue to be more intentional about listening to our customers' requests and offering them timely and relevant services to meet their needs. So I think it's gonna be less of mass production of anything. So say, for example, something like the buffets are going to be gone. So I think, you know, there'll be an introduction of a new fine dining experience, yeah? So we'll bring back the dining experience. If, say, for example, you're here with your family and you don't want to come into our public area, if for you care means we bring the food to you in your room, then that's one thing we're going to have to do. And we'll be doing that to you at no charge. So your room service, if you're on our full board package, those are some of the things that we'll offer to you at no extra cost. Yeah. So I think hospitality in the post-COVID season and era will be more about care for the customers and how well you care and show you care.
Thank you, Wajeri. Aja, you're up next. So what should we expect as you strike the balance between hospitality and being COVID friendly?
I actually agree with everything that Bernard and Wajeri have said so far. There is a very delicate balance between the amount of service and interaction we have with all of our guests and the experience that they receive at our hotels. Something that we've actually tried through this period is where you're usually used to going to the concierge and the front desk to make your to make your taxi reservations and your bookings. And we have tried to turn a lot of this conversation onto WhatsApp. So we didn't just do this with the guests living in house, we did this with the quarantine guests as well, where with the quarantine guests, I mean, that was a special situation where we created a WhatsApp group so you knew you weren't alone in the matter. But for our guests who are living in house, they have the managers on WhatsApp. So even if you wanted a bottle of water in the middle of the night, instead of having to pick up that phone like a traditional sense, the idea is that people don't want to touch everything anymore. They want less interaction with one another. So it's how to do it at the comfort of their needs. So right now at the moment, all of our in-house guests, they WhatsApp us for everything. It's I never thought I'd be on my phone as much as I am now, but it's one of those like ideas. Nobody wants to see a menu, so using those like QR codes that you can scan and pull up a menu on your own phones. I think this is something that's going to be developed more and more as we go along, but it's what interactions are unnecessary to do in person, and then how you're going to replicate them in a virtual sort of manner. So we've only really figured out 3 or 4 different ones at the moment, but as time goes on, we just keep saying, oh, okay, we can do this and we can do it in a different way. I give you one of those examples. When we did have a full quarantine business, we realized that people were just getting bored. How do you stay in a room by yourself for 14 days? So we partnered up with Ghetto Classics, and they put a band outside everyone's windows, and you could literally open the window and watch your concerts. You didn't actually have to be next to other people to do that. So those are the types of interactions and that we're gonna evolve, and we're gonna see a massive change in the industry for.
Okay, so a lot of what, there's always the people that work around the brand, and that's the employees to get everything rolling. They are the institution, I'd like to believe. And we're curious as to what have you done in this time in terms of working with your employees, even as COVID struck in the uncertainty. And then as you're open, what are you doing to safeguard your staff? Because they are also the point of contact for a lot of the clients that come in. So we can start with you and then work back.
No, that's a really good question. When COVID first hit, our first question was not how are we gonna maintain our business? It's if we stay open, sort of what are the dangers around it? So one of the things we realized is our staff taking tattoos in public transport, going to and from work, that's an exposure to them. So the first step we did is everybody who had to work moved into the hotel. So you lived in the hotel. If you weren't in a guest facing role and you were in a support role, you were allowed to go home, but you were not allowed in any guest facing areas or to even interact with our employees who were living in the hotels. So we had to separate our canteen, separate like sort of all interactions within the hotel. And then we thought about it, and obviously we have 430 staff between Tribe and Trademark. Now, with one hotel only 20% occupied and the other hotel completely shut, we only have 20% of our staff on board working at this moment. So the next question is, how do you support them? And obviously nobody has unlimited funds to keep paying staff when we're not even like making enough money to sort of run the hotel or break even. So our owners decided, okay, we're gonna give everyone who's not working sort of 10,000 shilling stipend to sort of help pay for food and take care of your basic needs. But then very quickly we realized all of our staff are wonderful. So some of them grow tomatoes and onions on the side in the shambas. Some of our staff had grow eggs. So instead of using our traditional suppliers, and this is why it is a ripple effect, but instead of using our traditional suppliers, we moved our supply chain into our staff. So even if our staff had a neighbor who grew X, Y, and Z ingredients, we now buy sort of 40% of our vegetables from our staff directly. So it's really supporting staff in different ways. We opened up our own extranet where we extended all of the wholesale pricing to our staff that we receive. So everything is sort of 30% cheaper than it is in retail. And that way, whoever works for us, their money goes just a little bit further, you know? If you create your own sauces or you know how to make your own soap. We allowed sort of staff to staff selling. So Tribe and Trademark are sort of larger part of the Kingsway Group of companies. So across the country, the Kingsway Group of companies has 2,500 employees. So all of a sudden we see that somebody in the hotel sector knows how to make soap, and all of a sudden there's like 100 people who are saying, oh, 30 bob soap, and it washes your hands and it's tested. We can buy it. And so sort of supporting that like direct collaboration between different companies.
Okay, and in regards to continuing in terms of operating, in terms of business, even as the economy is opening up, what are some of the things that you've also put in place as they're coming back into work, and just ensuring that if they're the front facing, what are we putting in place to make sure that we're trying to protect them as much as possible?
So some of the first things that you do is, if you do want to work in the hotel, you come in and you're automatically isolated. So coming just from your home, we put you in sort of an isolation period where we do test you. And the minute you're negative, then you're allowed to move rooms and start working. So most of our staff are sort of isolated with 3 or 4 days until the test results come back. If they're not, if they are positive, then they stay in their rooms. They're not even allowed to leave to go back home. We just house you for the next 14 days and retest you again. And this is one of those procedures that we thought is more important because we want to protect our staff as much as anything else. So if they did come to the hotel positive, then sending them back home is, I mean, that's where they got it from. So it's sort of protecting them in that sort of sense. And then we still are, we're cleaning all of our public areas with more frequency. If you're staying in one of our bedrooms, there's a 72-hour wait period before the next guest is even allowed. But so the 72 hours before anybody even touches that room, then the entire room is stripped, fumigated by an outside contractor, and then re-put in before the next guest comes. So there's at least a 4 to 5 day waiting period from one guest checking out to the next guest checking in. These are just really important procedures that have been put in. Our housekeeping have full hazardous PPT. It looks ridiculous, but completely necessary to protect them from anything that happens. So they are completely covered head to toe, and we invested in that sort of protective equipment for them. And then we're using, as Bernard and Wanjeri said, we're using hospital procedures. So we are using surgical masks. We have consulted, because we're very lucky that MP Shah is directly opposite Harvest. So we have consulted doctors to just make sure that we are taking that extra step to not just protect our staff, but protect everybody.
Okay, thank you. That's an amazing journey, and even just getting to hear what you're doing with the staff, and just it's community and just looking out for each other, being your brother's keeper. I think let me switch it around and give Bernard an opportunity, and I think I'll give a different angle for Mr. Hersey once I'm done with Wanjeri to hear your point on it. So let's hear what Sarova has been doing for the staff in between this period, and even as most of the locations open.
Well, the one thing that we've done as Sarova Hotels is that we're just trying to make sure that our staff are still on board. As you definitely would understand, that this is a very draining time with no incoming revenue. It's very challenging. And so far, what we've just tried to do is just make sure that everyone is on board by just making sure that we don't lay off unless we really must. At the end of the day, you're impacting more than just one person. Huh? It's a chain of people behind them. That said, in terms of testing and staff management, we've just tried to make sure that any staff coming in to duty first and foremost, as we move towards reopening, we're making sure that we've tested all our staff as they reopen, as each particular unit reopens. we're making sure that all the staff are tested and certified, so that the guests interacting with them do not have any worries about infection and so on. Just to give you an example, indeed, we had reopened our Thornty restaurant, and thereafter 2 of our staff were found to be COVID positive, and we opted to close the restaurant and go through the whole process once more, fumigation, cleaning, and so on, so that we could just make sure that anybody else coming back in knows exactly what we have done. It is not anything to hide. This is necessary, and it is necessary to inform people about what we're doing. Now, in terms of keeping staff engaged, all our management staff basically have been working remotely, unless they had to be on the property. We've, on account of the fact that we've had to close quite a few of our units, we did ask staff to basically have to leave temporarily until we reopen. But that said, we are now looking to reopen in the course of this month, I think as early as next week. Hopefully we should be all ready to go and just keep everyone on board. Now, of course, keeping staff meant that we've had to take some financial hits in terms of having to have some pay cuts in order to just make sure that everyone is making something, as opposed to one person making and the rest not. So difficult for all of us, but we've had to make our individual adjustments in order to accommodate everybody. This is necessary just to keep the staff morale up, and also to just make sure that the teams are also not too badly financially impacted. In terms of the staffing at the different units, we've also provided PPEs to all staff, depending on the areas in which they're working. Room service staff, of course, have their specific PPEs. The restaurant staff, of course, also have the minimal standard, which is a face mask. In terms of engaging the customers, they are also being encouraged to try and respect social distance when serving customers, and also just making sure that they also themselves also are not putting themselves at risk. That has been quite important in terms of engaging staff and making sure that they remain healthy.
Thank you, and thank you for also being very honest with us, because we also need to realize, even as we're trying to employ all these things from an organizational level and personal level, we also have to accept COVID is here with us, and there's a possibility of getting infected, and it's just a reality we'll have to live with. And it's good to hear that there's already ways that you're mitigating. It's happened, it's being mitigated, and I feel like the way for, what you do going forward is more important, and just to overcome it. So there are a lot of questions coming in. We're seeing a lot of comments from people who are tuning in from different parts of the world as well. We're seeing people from the UK, the States. So this conversation has also gone global. So we can see, even as we're hoping to discuss international tourism, a lot of your customers are already tuning in to listen to what's happening. So Jerry, let's hear what Nashipai has put in place.
Okay. All right. I think just listening to Aja, I was like, wow, the staff-to-staff conversation on how to bring that trading between the hotel and the staff. I think that's one thing I would like to steal from from Trade and Trademark. But I think for us, we've been closed for most of the time. So one big thing we encourage our staff to do during the 3-month break is to stay in touch with the public health guidelines, right? So just stay in touch, follow the news, and just read up on what's happening, and just stay clued up on how to protect yourself on that. Just like the Sarova Group, we have retained all our staff in as much as people are on unpaid leave. So right now, I think the we've taken a balance between, keeping people on staff, even though you're not able to pay everybody if they're not working. We've also, as we're preparing to reopen, we have gotten what they're calling the PPEs, the protective clothing. So as staff are coming back to work, they're all going to get their face masks, they're going to get gloves, they're going to get sanitizers. And all the back offices and all the, the staff canteens, the staff lockers, they will be cleaned in the same way. So the same chemicals, the same procedures, the sanitization that's going to take place as frequently as it's taking place in the guest areas, that same sanitization procedure is going to take place in the staff areas. As they come into work, the temperature checks will happen at the gates so that, things can be discovered even before they come into the gate. For most of our staff, they are transported using the hotel transport. So hopefully that then, will be able to contain some of the spread. But the temperature checks at the gate, that is critical. That is going to happen for each and every staff, just as it's happening for our guests as well. We've also rearranged our workspaces to take into account social distancing. So I think what you're going to be seeing is less people throughout the property. So that is a reality that we're going to have to do so that we are able to maintain social distancing. I think another thing that we'll see coming through this period is cleaners were generally people who would come in, and try as much as possible to be invisible. But because people want to see their spaces being clean, they want to see, so you're going to have to bring the cleaning theater out, right? So that's probably one of the things that's going to be different post-COVID is that, people will be cleaning more often and they'll be cleaning, as we're going and as people are in their spaces, because we do have to keep sanitizing. Yeah. The other thing we're doing is we are going to have to conduct frequent trainings for our staff. And some of it is just trying to get people to unlearn the things that come naturally to them. So things like hugging, shaking hands, that's a very natural thing that we do. So I think it's just trying to remind people, some of this, you're going to have to unlearn some of the things. So I think those are some of the measures that we are putting in place.
Right, thank you. And it's amazing to hear what's happening even from the back end. A lot of these things we don't get to interact with or know what's happening in the back burner in terms of keeping the staff safe and by extension, the guests safe. Mr. Hersey, I have a question in regards to the engagement on staff. And I know you dealing under the association, just the KTF, I know a lot of these conversations have come up about staffing, what people have done. Maybe you can shed a bit of light in terms of some of the scenarios you've had and seen that are happening in the hospitality industry beyond what has been discussed.
I think firstly, I must commend all the panelists for the beautiful presentations of their company. And above that, also on how they've been able to deal with the crisis. They've handled themselves so well. And I'm also picking some ideas. I like the one of Aja, where she talks about supporting their own staff in terms of the little supplies that you need to buy, considering that you still have low occupancies. The new phenomenon in Nairobi these days, you see people parking by the roadside and a Mercedes boot or a Prado open, and you've got all sorts of wares coming out of it. And people trying to make ends meet. It's a new thing. So if you're able to help your staff to do business with you, there's no harm. After all, they're on 50% pay cut, some of them on 30% take home, or some of them even on paid leave. So as long as they're able to deliver quality for you, why not? And in the process, who knows? Somebody may just discover that they're an entrepreneur, and they may just realize that they don't need to work anymore. And they may say, you know what, when hotel reopens, I just want to become a supplier now. Yeah. So those are some of the things, there's always a silver lining in anything that happens to you. It is said that what happens to you is not that matters, is how you deal with it. And I think instead of lamenting and mourning, we need, to pick ourselves, dust ourselves, and focus, stay and move forward. And that's exactly what all the players are doing. I can see some questions there which have been answered already by the panelists. When it comes to hygiene factors, people are worried. if I visit a hotel, will I catch the virus? That's the big question everybody is asking. And before I come to that, the issue of employees, that has been a big challenge for all the employers. These are people you've worked with for many years, and suddenly there's this crisis, there is no revenue coming in. For the first time, you end up with zero revenues. I'm a tour operator. Over 140 of our Land Cruisers are packed, doing nothing. Hotels, your hotel is totally closed. You're getting nothing, zero revenues. You know, in the past, because of the challenges we face, like insecurity, you're still able to attract some conference here and there, and you get going. But this time around, it's total, complete, closed shop. For the first time, airlines, there are no aircrafts in the air. And there was a challenge suddenly that aircrafts could not even find enough places to park. Nobody ever thought that all these aircrafts one day will be on tarmac somewhere. Now, let me come back to the issue on how we've dealt with COVID. And probably that's something I'd like to share with panelists and also the people attending here. When COVID came to town in March, there was a lot of what can I say, unknowns, and we were all worried. And our government took the extreme measure which all other governments did take at that time, which means close your airspace and try as much as possible to keep away this virus that is unknown and that has killed so many people in China then, and they started moving to other countries. But now we are in July, and then we were also warned as an African continent that you guys come in April. We also warned here in Kenya that we'll be getting 10,000 minimum cases. And as we move forward, it will peak sometimes in June, or actually May, and then June. But for some reason, touch wood, thank God, that has not come to pass. Now we've been given a new deadline again. We've been told August or September. So somebody is pushing, dates and all that. I think it's very important also that we do not push fear, because fear is even worse than the virus itself. And the reality is that I am not trying to downplay the virus. I have my mask, it's right here. Yep. Only now that I'm in my office, I don't have the mask. I have my sanitizer. I will keep social distance. We'll do everything that we need to do to remain safe. But just to share some statistics with everybody, while we're looking at cases, we're also being told now that, hey, you know what, numbers are going up. Are you looking at another lockdown? I think that is not a debate we should be looking at. We should now also be looking at the number of deaths. For some reason, our mortality rate has been very low. And let me just share some statistics per million. North America, which includes Latin America, has got the highest numbers. And per million, Latin America and North America put together, per million, we are currently looking at 200, and these are figures from WHO, which is in public domain, 270 deaths per million, 270. You can write it down and you see the flow. Europe, which is another continent that's been hit hard, is 217 deaths per million. Southeast Asia, which includes India and China, which are the two most populous countries in the world, they are standing at 13.5, let's say 14 deaths per million. The African continent, we are standing at 6.5 deaths per million. So what does that mean? It means that compared to North America or compared to Europe, we are 45 times lower than those continents. And then when you also look at the number of people dying, or rather the age bracket, it's 60 years old and above. We are not suggesting anybody below that will not die. You and I also run the same risk at the end of the day, but we need to continue exercising caution. But we are lucky as an African continent that 80% of our population is actually below the age of 30. And when you look at the percentage of the 6,000 people who have already died on the African continent, more than 60% is shared between Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, that is closer to Europe, and then a bit of it also Southern Africa. In reality, when you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, where you and I and all of us are located, the numbers even go lower than what you will find even in places like Pacific, which includes the likes of Fiji, which have got less than 3 per million deaths. So I think the numbers that I've shared should give you a bit of comfort that this fear factor is something we also need to reduce. I am not suggesting that we go out there and say, you know what, Mohammed told us this because these are figures at WHO, we can have the merrymaking. No. Now, coming back to hotels and tourism players, we practice very high levels of hygiene, even before COVID came to town. We work with the likes of SGS. We'll work with the likes of Ecolab. We work with the likes of Diversity. These are international brands. We don't cut corners. We spend a fortune when it comes to matters hygiene and safety. Now, COVID has now been added onto the list, and we are ahead of the pack when it comes to industries that have been able to address matters COVID. We closed straight away as hotels, as tour companies, and we said, okay, we don't know about this virus. Okay, fine, let's stop doing business. And that was the position. But now that we are reopening, we want to reassure everybody that we've done everything that we can. And let me tell you, we talk about hotels and the safety measures they put in place. The question that I have, what measures are there when it comes to public service vehicles? We are insisting to test our own staff. We are doing that, by the way. We are not saying no, we are doing that. But the same member of staff will ride in that matatu where the crew have not been tested, whether it's the driver, whether it's the conductor. But hotels have gone the extra mile. They're saying, if we have tested the member of staff, because testing is also not cheap, some of the hotels have gone out of their way to accommodate their staff so that they don't get exposed to the virus. Some are accommodating them for almost a month so that they keep them safe. Just to reassure anybody walking through the door that, look here, the staff who are going to handle you are actually being tested and they are safe. But the question also we have is this: while we have tested ourselves that we are ready, who's testing the client coming to us? So we need to start dropping this fear factor, and we need to say that, you know what, we must exercise caution within reason, all right? We are not going to allow parties where social distancing is thrown out of the window. We will not do that. But you know what? Being in Africa, because of the hot sun, and even the swimming pools, you know, chlorine is the biggest enemy to the virus. So these are some of the things that we need to start embracing. And that's the new norm at the end of the day. And reassure everyone that, look here, you actually stand a higher risk to get infected in other places. Looking at a supermarket, for instance, that attendant who is virtually touching every single item that you buy, you know, every single item as they push for it to be packed for you. Who has tested that cashier? When a member of staff in that supermarket turns positive, when do they close and fumigate? So we need also not to be unfair to the hotel industry, not to be unfair to the tourism industry, but you know what? We've decided and we've chosen, and this is deliberate, our levels, we've decided, you know what? We belong here because hygiene has been second nature to us. And government or authorities or whoever, they are preaching to the converted when it comes to matters hygiene. With those remarks, I think I'll put into perspective how we have been affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And you're right, it's true. Every organization has to play their part, but even as individuals, we also have to own our part. The hotel industry can do as much as they can, but if we're not taking precautions as individuals, then it's as good as no effort. And I think one of the questions I have for all of you is, and a lot of questions are coming in, and people are already getting scared about pricing when they hear everything that's going into sanitizing the spaces, and they're just seeing the dollar signs racking up. But I think allow me to exhaust the cleanliness a bit, and then we can I can go back and ask each of the panelists about pricing from the institution. And I think one of the things that I really wanted us to kind of expand into is, what's the experience, or what am I going to expect? I will have to travel a lot as a family, especially locally. And one of the experiences is always, you know, what's the check-in process going to look like now with COVID, in as much as we're talking about being COVID specific in terms of our systems, you know, the touching points. When I check into my room, what are some of them? And I think we had touched on some of them. I know Bernard had mentioned about sealing the room. Aja had mentioned about once it's been sanitized, kind of giving it some window so that people are not able to. So I'd like us to expound on this a little bit more specifically regarding check-in and stay-in guests and what thought has been on, what processes have been put into that. And I will start with Aja.
So as I was mentioning before, we're really looking at all the different touch points that you interact with the guest and see how we can virtually change those. So in terms of the check-in process, we're actually looking at adopting a new technology which allows you to do an online check-in, which means that you can scan your passport, update your address and other details. So when you come to the hotel, it's literally verifying it without having to touch your documents and handing you a room key. When you come to the restaurant, just as Wanjari and Bernard said, if you don't want to come to our main restaurant, because we are open to the public, providing you that private space where the public isn't really allowed to be in, so you can enjoy your meals in a private space and keep yourself safe if you're not comfortable being. And we've done that for a lot of our guests over the last few months. Again, with housekeeping, making sure that nobody is in the room and the correct PPE equipment's being used, making sure that you are using chemicals, double checking everything. I know there's a lot of videos going on around sort of 5-star hotels and the hotel and hygiene standards from the United States of America. We're making sure that none of that happens here. We're keeping with the protocols. The 1.5 meter distancing at the restaurants. We have lots of guests who say we're a family. We don't want to sit 1.5 meters apart from each other in a restaurant. And we have to remind them that it's not about you. It's about everybody else around you. So we need you to maintain it. So everybody else is going to maintain it. If you don't want to do it, then you can go sit in a restaurant that would allow you to sit closer together. Also, contact tracing. So now when you come into our restaurants, you do have to leave your details behind. This is mainly just as a precautionary measure. You don't know if there's going to be a positive person who walks through your restaurant. It's 80% of people are asymptomatic, which means they don't get fevers, they don't get temperature checks. 80% of people won't be seen by these measures, you know? These measures are only going to catch those 20%. So if we ever find there's a positive person, at least we can trace everybody in and around who was sitting in the restaurant or in the facility at the time. Also providing specific places. So we've had a few groups who've come to us, sort of 10 rooms, and they've sort of moved in for a weekend doing their own staycation because they've got the cabin fever. But it's not, number one, interacting with the people who do live in our hotel, because the people who have lived in our hotel have lived there for 3 months. They are COVID negative because they've never really left the property. So it's making sure that that crossover doesn't happen, that a weekend group is also now going to affect our long stay guests. So we have all these sorts of procedures in place where we have a gym, but who's allowed to use it, the times that people are allowed to use it. We have other facilities like a social distancing cinema and how we also handle that. We have snooker tables, ping pong tables, board games, and sort of we've got protocols around how interaction around all these different aspects work.
So Aja, I have a question already coming in specifically to you, and it's from Anushka. And she'd like to know, I thought I'd just ask it since it's in line with what you've just touched on. And she asked that seeing as the layout and trademark is connected to Village Market, what systems are in place to protect those staying in the hotel from guests in the mall?
That's a really good question. Okay, so the biggest touch point that we have with the Village Market is Harvest. Harvest is technically in the Village Market, but it's a hotel restaurant and it's our all-day dining. During COVID and before restaurants were allowed to be open outside of our guests, we had actually blocked off the entire restaurant to the public. So we just put up pillars wherever we connected with the Village Market and just completely blocked it off. Now that people are allowed to be in the restaurants, and Harvest is one of those restaurants that are open during this time, what we've done is we've continued blocking off sections of the mall, sections of the hotel to the mall. So unless you're specifically there to use a meeting room, you cannot walk through our conference space. You cannot walk through our lobbies, and you cannot use our elevators. However, you can use an escalator to come up and enter Harvest. So Harvest is a zone that is open to the public, but our elevators are not. So you have to use the mall escalators to get to the restaurant, or the mall elevators to get to the restaurant. So those are the different types of, and this is where I mean crossover. We try and prevent crossover of our actual guests with anybody else. And then we are doing all the government regulations. So we're checking everyone's temperature, we're sanitizing everyone, we're keeping the 1.5 meter distancing. You no longer get menus. So you can scan a QR code. And if you do prefer a menu, we have laminated ones that are sanitized before you use it and after you use it. We sanitize all your chairs before you sit down and after you sit down. So we are still keeping up to all of those, but we're trying to reduce the amount of interaction. If one of our in-house guests decide that they don't mind being at Harvest, then that's up to them. But we are also giving them the option that they can eat in a private space, they can have a private office, they don't need to work out of our restaurants. So they can have their own space without having to interact with anybody in the public.
Okay, so I'll quickly move to Bernard and then Wajeri.
Okay. The guest experience. Let me take the example of a guest checking into the hotel. First and foremost, we have temperature checks, which is more like the basic indicator that somebody is unwell. And this, initially we are using the temperature, the infrared temperature guns. Maybe we just graduate to something different. Secondly, your luggage would be disinfected via a UV disinfectant container. You put in your luggage, it's disinfected, and then it's moved to a secure place. And like Arja said, we're in a place where we need to reduce contact. So things like passport scanning, guests should be able to do it by themselves. And very soon we will be hopefully getting to the point where this is not almost immediate, but where your key card may not be your key card. It will be maybe a code sent to your phone. But for now, even your key card is disinfected via a UV disinfector gadget. And again, 1.5 meter spacing between you and the desk. We're trying to reduce as much contact with non-essential contact with the reception or with any other surface as possible. Once you're escorted to your room, then access to the room is via your key card, and then your room is sealed, and you'll be the one breaking the seal so that you can access the room. All the surfaces in the room will have been disinfected, and then you would be the first person to actually be able to access that room and use the facilities in it. Again, UV disinfector gadgets, like a UV wand, which will be used to disinfect curtains, because you cannot change your curtains on a daily basis or per guest stay. In this case, technology is coming to assist quite a bit in terms of how somebody is able to access the facilities. In the restaurants, again, we are keeping the ministry's 1.5 meter distance rule. Again, as with Arja as well, our menus are now available as a QR code. You scan it, read it on your email, on your phone, and make your selection, and it's done for you. Additionally, things like single-use menus, where you have a menu that basically would be used also as a table mat, and you're done with it. It's trashed, it's not again available for use. And for guests in the restaurant as well, each seating area once used is then not available for use until thoroughly cleaned and disinfected before the next guest. So you'll find that you have an indicator on the table that tells you that it's ready for use or it's not ready for use. Additionally, also trying to restrict the number of people that can access a certain area at a time. To keep that 1.5 meter distance obviously means then you reduce your capacity in certain areas like conference rooms. You may not be able to host the same number of people in a conference room as before. You're talking about reducing your conference capacity by anything up to about between 20 and 30%, or maybe even 50%, depending on the size of the room. So these are some of the measures that we're looking at, just trying to make sure that guests are comfortable enough to come in and use the facilities. So it's about cleanliness, and then it's also about trying to make sure that you have the number of people that you can actually manage at a time. I noticed somebody also asked about, for example, Christmas that's coming up soon. And yes, the same parameters will apply. Disinfectant, temperature monitoring, making sure that you do not have an excessive amount of people in one space at a time, and just making sure that guests also have the facilities. We, for example, if a guest walks in without a mask, we will give them a mask. They will find a hand sanitizer in the room or on a conference table or at the reception. So there's something that they'll be able to do very frequently. Because all around the hotel, you have these non-contact sanitizer dispensers. So you even don't have to touch that. Yeah. Right. So reducing contact, reducing spacing.
Okay. So allow me to move to Ajayi, but I'll ask a different question for you, because unless there's something that is specifically different that you're doing in regards to the touch points in the rooms. I think one of the questions I really wanted to find out was, in terms of engagement, I think I have seen a lot of what you've done with the community, and just trying to understand in this time, how have you been able to engage the community, and going forward, even in the activities and service offerings. So in terms of staycations, I'm seeing a lot of questions from people about, are there, and I'll still do another loop to quickly hear some of the services you've tweaked in terms of in-stay and conferencing. One being, what are the options now in terms of in-stay? People who'd like to use it as a workspace. What about families that don't feel like interacting, or people want to holiday but don't want to interact with the regular staying guests?
Okay, so let me take the second question first, around what are we doing around, the different service offering. So we have, I would say, like 2 new service offerings that we'll be offering our guests. One is the self-catering option, where what we're calling the home at Nashipai. So we know people want to leave their homes. They're working at home, they're doing everything at home. So it can get a bit much to get the cabin fever, and you'd want to get out of town. Yet those people probably are not ready to interact with other guests in the public areas. So our Home at Nashipai product will allow our guests to use our villas and our cottages and cook for themselves. So literally they will be in direct control of who they interact with and how they interact. The beauty of the Nashipai is that we're a road trip destination. So you just need to get into your car, you're in direct control of who you're with in your car. And when you come to the hotel, you have a clean, sanitized room ready for you. And so that Home at Nashipai product, I believe, will be something exciting. It's something people had been asking about previously, but I guess we were comfortable with, our regular full board option. So COVID has sort of fast-tracked the introduction of this particular service offering. So that's something new that will be coming through to give guests more choice over how they interact with the hotel and with other guests. The other thing that I think that will be coming in is what we are calling the private office at Enashipai. And this is for the people who want to work away from their homes and still need an environment that will give them, the levels of productivity required. So strong Wi-Fi, good catering, because maybe you're handling a panel for a whole day. Maybe you want to do some private high-level interviews. So you do want to have a space that will be able to allow you to be productive, to concentrate and not have to worry about technology, because we have an IT team that will be available for you, and not have to worry about your meals, but you still want to eat a great meal. So the private office at Enashipai will be something that will be coming through. And even as we've offered the self-catering, we know, and we already started getting inquiries around people who want to do long stay. So I actually just want to move into Naivasha, and my kids are online school. Those who will still continue to be in school. So kids are doing online learning, you're working from home. So literally you can work from anywhere. So some people, we know we're getting inquiries already. Can we then book the villas and the cottages for a month, 2 months? Can we just literally move and plug in? So I think that will be something new and exciting that will be coming. Our villas and cottages were already equipped to handle that. So welcome if you're looking for a new environment and want to plug in, enjoy the fresh air in Naivasha. So that would be something exciting that we'll be bringing together. With regard to engagement with the community, we have been in touch with our students at Mirera. We do sponsor a couple of students at Mirera Primary School. And what has been very good about this particular COVID period is our guests have actually come to us and say, the students that we have been sponsoring over the years, are they okay? How can we plug in? Yeah, so we have gotten great support for when we have come out to our guests to request for care packages and the support. So we have been in touch with the students we sponsor. We have delivered care packages, and that's how we have plugged in with our community, together with our partners, Moja too. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So allow me to move to Mr. Hersi, to Mohammed, and ask a question. As the chairman of KTF and also being a tour operator, having a lot of experience in that field, what are some of the ways that we can innovatively or think around, or some of the ideas we can start to implement in terms of making things like conferencing, what to expect when doing a game drive, or just some interesting innovations that we can try to embrace or think about embracing going forward, even before we release you?
Thank you. I think the fact that we have COVID with us and it's going to be here for a while, and we know how it is spread, obviously it totally undermines the business that we do. One of the ways to avoid COVID, you're told, is social distancing. Our business is about socializing. So it's complete opposite of what we do. You are not supposed to come together. Looking at a hotel, someone described a hotel as a place where you go to see and to be seen. And suddenly it's becoming a dangerous place that everybody's asking, is it safe to be there? And we are saying, look here, we've done everything that we could. Wanjeri said it here, Bernard, Arja, everybody has said what they are doing to reassure everyone that you're coming to a very safe environment. Now, we need to be very creative. And I like what many of the players are doing. They're looking at office setups in their hotels. Somebody like Wanjeri now saying, look here, you cater for yourself instead of the usual full board. Come over and have your own homely meals. After all, we've had the setup all along. And for some reason, we had not made use of it. Here we go now, and I've been to Enashipai. It's fantastic. I mean, the kitchen is well set, everything done. Okay, so those are the things. Sometimes it's said, when you get when life hands you a lemon, make a lemonade out of it. But for me, COVID will not be here forever. A vaccine will certainly be found, because replacing tourism with virtue. I've even heard people talk about virtual tourism. You sit like what we are doing now, and we give you a game drive, it's never the same. You have to go and touch and feel and experience a destination. A safari will never be the same. Like you might as well watch it then on National Geographic on HD rather than on this wobbly camera and what have you. But what we can do now is to keep ourselves out there so that there's still visibility about Kenya. And I support all the organizations, that have come out to do virtual safaris from wherever you are, and then you are reminded that this virtual safari has started. That's one of the ways to remind people that the destination is still there, right? But long term, tourism has to go back to what it has been in terms of people actually feeling a destination. You need to go to New York to feel what New York is all about, the never sleeping city. You need to go to Thailand to experience Thailand. You need to come to Kenya, to feel the real world of safari, the world of warm, friendly people, where the name safari or the name wageni and a foreigner is the same thing, and where Kenyans, the smile of Kenyans is something that you can never train anyone to do. You're told other destination could be better than us when it comes to infrastructure. But when it comes to the people, no one can beat Kenyans. Kenyans have got this huge smile. Whether they are facing hard times, they are smiling and they're always happy. Even now, by the way, with all our troubles, you see all the jokes that are being made about COVID, people are still smiling and saying, you know what, it will be better. Now, let's get creative. Let's do all what we can. I appreciate the hotels that have really gone out of their way to remain afloat. And I just can only wish them all the very best. And from Kenya Tourism Federation, we encourage all these players who've gone out of there to do what they need to do. But the other thing also is that the WTO have clearly said it, and research has shown that the first segment to bounce back is domestic. And people are saying that tourism players in Kenya have never embraced domestic tourism. And I think they must be 10 years behind, because we embraced domestic tourism 2007 and 8 during the infamous post-election violence. We moved completely to domestic tourism. In 2018, 58% of our hotel beds were occupied by domestic tourists. So anybody saying that we've never embraced domestic tourism, they're in their own world. Because when you go to Enashipai, for instance, on a weekend, it's packed with domestic people. You can't even find space. You go to Sarova Waisal, next door to my office here, domestic tourists. You go to our own resort in Diani. Weekends, Kenyans have discovered that traveling on a weekend is easy and it's quick, because we also must encourage the low-cost carriers. And SGR for us, the Madaraka Express, have been a game changer. And hopefully, while the SGR station in Naivasha is quite way far from Naivasha, but it still adds into the numbers. So when you're able to transport 1,200 people in one train, that was a big, big game changer. And we're also happy that Kenya Railways have announced that they will again be back from next week. And we look forward, because they normally move numbers and they are also able to maintain social distancing because of the setup of the coaches. So I will urge everybody to continue exercising, mask, sanitize, wash your hands, social distancing. And for the first time, Kenyans have been washing hands like never before. Even the normal flu has disappeared, which basically tells you that our hygiene levels had been left, to go down south. It's high time now we come back and we continue with this level of hygiene. Now I understand when I see a Chinese or somebody from Thailand or Vietnam putting on a mask, because usually when we have a cold or a flu, we don't take any precaution. You actually end up infecting the entire office. And we talk about it. We say so-and-so brought it. But suddenly, even coughing is becoming something. So you're very careful, even the coughing. So you notice it is a cold season, but the number of people suffering from flu has really dropped, because now we are not shaking hands. Secondly, we're all in mask, which means that even if you got any kind of flu, you are not spreading that virus. And I think this is a new norm that we've picked up. There's always something good. And as an optimist, I will always say that there's always something ahead for us. So all is not lost. Folks, stay safe. And Melissa, thank you very much for the invite. Thank you, Wanjeri. Thank you, Bernard. And thank you, Aja. And looking forward to more interactions. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Mohammed, for joining. We'll release you. But before you go, there's one thing you said to me this morning that was a good challenge. And I hoped you would stay to be able to put this. We discussed about marketing and how to support the hospitality industry in terms of their efforts to get the word out in terms of domestic and international travel. And there's something you mentioned that really was powerful in regards to engaging on social. And allow me to just throw that to you to just really just expound on that, and then we can release you.
Okay, I think the discussion we had earlier before this session, a lot of marketing, by the way, is free, especially when it comes to social media. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of players who feel social media is not like it. Because the other day, we had a quick poll that was done by KTB during one of their webinars. And only 55% of the players were actually engaged actively on social media. Yet, for you to post a nice picture or a nice video of your hotel or a tour experience is all free on Facebook, unless you want for it to go as a sponsored, post. But it's all free. You've got senior people in the industry who are not on any social media. And you think that social media can be left to that intern seated at a corner, that they will be able to handle it for you. I think it's high time all players, including owners, they need to embrace social media and take it. Because you know what? That's where business is being done. Kenyans are on social media. The whole world is on social media. People follow what's going on. In fact, you get to know about breaking news on social media before even the media itself. And then you go out one of the handles from the main media to verify whether what you've been sent is actually true or is one of those fake news. So for me, I'll urge everybody, KTB will do what they can. Remember, they only have a limited budget. And I must also commend KTB. They've really tried to spread that dollar they've received over a longer period, okay? Because what KTB gets in comparison to South Africa, what South Africa spent just on marketing alone is the entire budget for KTB. So let us do our bit. And for owners and for investors and for management, whether you are in airline, whether you are in tours, whether you're in hotels, the first budget we always cut is marketing and personnel, HR. Please don't cut on marketing, because at the end of the day, these are the people who are supposed to fill up your hotel. And I'm sure Wanjeri is smiling that yes, marketing should not be the first line where you start cutting. Asante sana.
Okay, thank you for that. And we also know that you'll be, doing your best to also support the brands that are also represented here in marketing to be able to get things back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you, bye.
For the panelists remaining, I think we need to wrap up. I just have one last round of quick fire. The pertinent question of pricing. So should we expect any price changes in the packages that you're offering? Just very briefly, and I'll start with Bernard, Aja, then Wanjeri.
In terms of the actual price, let me say that we will not try to yield the way we normally yield on our customers at the moment. Currently, we are focusing on the domestic traveler, and under normal circumstances, we would be looking at supply and demand. That this, for example, currently we are in the peak season in the Mara, where we would normally expect the lodges in the Mara to be full, in which case, naturally, since we know lodges will be full, we charge a premium price. Currently, what we are offering is a fraction of what we would normally charge for anyone going to the Mara. So the same experience that has been there over the years, you will find it now at an extremely attractive price. For the city hotels, just before I just talk about city hotels, in general, what we're just trying to do is just make sure that we have revenues that will run our facilities. Pay a salary here, make sure the hotel is serviceable, make sure that there's meals available for guests and so on. So we're not trying to maximize on the profits here. Right now, we just need to make revenue to make our ends meet and meet a few of our obligations. City hotels, again, operate on the same principle of yielding. We've not gone to that direction right now. We're just going to have a flat rate that we're going to offer everybody and just see how they're going to react. But at the end of the day, the prices you will find are extremely attractive. If anyone has seen our rates to the Masai Mara currently, I think this is the best time to jump onto that and just go to the Mara. It's going to, it may never happen again, so take advantage of it right now. Same with the other lodges, Nakuru, Shaba, extremely attractive and value pricing.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Good to hear about the pricing. And if you are looking to go to the Mara, you should check out Sarova for their deals then. Aja?
It's funny that pricing is mentioned all the time. I think we have given more value for money on our pricing, and we've had lots and lots of different types of deals out there over the last 3 months. What the future holds, I can't exactly reassure anyone because we come up with ideas all the time. But the idea of staying in a city hotel, especially as someone from Nairobi, it's all about the value that you receive in return for the price that you pay. So we do have some fantastic offers out there right now, starting with sort of a 4-course dinner and stay at 10,000 shillings per person, which I think is it is quite affordable, and it's a lot lower than we generally charge for a room night. We're trying to allow everyone to experience what we have to offer, because everything that we do is based on those different value adds of opening Kaya Spa in our mall, or our laundry packages, or we've priced them very, very fairly, I believe.
Wajeri.
Ever-did question, like which price, what offers do you have on board? I think at Enashpai, what I would say is we will have some offers, but and I would, let's just say we will have offers running. Our rates will be cheaper than they usually are, but we're not going to offer bottom of the range pricing, and I'll explain why. Because we have, all these new things that we have to do are quite expensive, right? So I think as a hotel, I do not want to cut corners with what I will be offering the guests. So because I do want to offer you top-notch sanitization, I do want to offer you, I want to give you the confidence that we are doing our best to keep you safe. So we will focus more on the experience. So I want you to come in and feel that whatever you paid for your stay at the hotel, you got good value for your money. You managed to have a memorable stay with us, and you got a good experience. So I think there's one thing that I didn't mention earlier. Previously, Enashpai has typically been a buffet hotel. So with COVID, the one thing that's going away is buffets, because you don't want people touching spoons and, sharing the spoons and, spreading whatever. So that's the one thing that's going away. So for me, I would say, bring back the exciting dining experience. You're going to be seated and prepared to be, to have a show with your meals, and prepare to just have a complete great experience when you come in with your meals. So I think we're going to be moving more towards the set menus, where dining becomes a real great experience. So we will have offers running, and I would encourage people to visit our website, menashipai.com, to be looking for the offers. But I would focus more on the value. Come in and whatever money you have given us, you will get value for your money. Yeah. So do not be afraid, just come.
Yes, and remember the extra added value that nobody's mentioning, even as the prices are being adjusted, is you're actually, for that price, they're still putting in a lot more to make sure you're safe. So let's also remember that as we're looking at the pricing aspect. I think one thing I'd like to ask as we close is, what can we as individuals and what can we as event, even for us as the event design and decor specialists do to support the hospitality industry right now? And I'll start with, in alphabetical order, Adra.
Honestly, for support of the hospitality industry, we know that the social distancing, we know that the government's imposed lots of different restrictions, but we're still there. We're still there for all your celebrations. You have a smaller wedding, you have a birthday party, you just want to go out. You need to know that we are taking all the precautions necessary to try and keep you as safe as we possibly can. If you are going crazy at home, we have bedrooms for you to stay in. We have private offices that have been rented out to companies, to individual guests. So you still have a safe place to go to on a daily basis if you can't work at home. We have 3 fantastic restaurants right now open. So if you don't like to come out to the restaurants, then we also have family meals that we send to your houses. So you can look us up. We have really fair pricing on all of it. But we need the support in the sense that people should still use us and not forget about us. So we hope to see you as one of our future customers at Hero, Harvest, Pasta Republic. If you want a staycation, please try and choose Trademark for your options. There's lots of fun activities that we still have to offer in our Nairobi properties.
Bernard?
Yeah, as Alja said, we're open, we're ready. I look at it this way. COVID-19 is not leaving anytime soon. So we learn to live with it, we work around it, we work with it, and everything should be fine. I mean, it's like looking into the future. The future brings you things, and you work with those things, and you create a new horizon. So as far as the situation is concerned, just to let you know, to all event planners, event managers, and so on, we're open. We're ready. We will assist you in whichever way possible while maintaining the Ministry of Health government directives in terms of social distancing, health and safety procedures, even on a higher level than before. So yeah, we're ready to receive guests at all our properties. And that said, we do have these standards being carried from one property to the next. So it is not only being seen in Nairobi, as everybody would imagine. This will be, if you go to the Masai Mara, at Sororo Mara, you will find the same standards being adhered to. If you go to Nakuru at Woodlands, you will find the same standards being adhered to, Mombasa, and so on. So we are not cutting corners. We can't afford to cut corners. The video about the hotel in New York, I mean, that's a hotel in New York. I guess the rest of us learn from that, and we just make sure that we are not getting caught out like that. That's it.
Manjari.
What I would ask of event planners is be creative. Yeah, this is a time like no other where, the events are going to be much smaller. So say, for example, a wedding. So previously people were hosting weddings for 300, 400, 500 plus, right? So now you're doing a wedding with 30 people. So I think what I would say, the support we need from the, just be creative and use the properties, work with the hotels, because now, we're all being forced to be super creative. So I think if we work with the creative minds of the event planners and then using our venues. I just think the people who are doing events right now, you can get anything you want from a hotel. And you know, so if you had a budget for 500 people and now you have 30, please ask for a 10-course meal. And you know, let's design this event with you. Hotels are equipped with great internet. So if you're having your wedding, Zoom the rest of the world. If you are having, say, for example, a medical conference, so some of you can be based here, others are in Mombasa, others in New York, in Spain, wherever. I think it can, I mean, there's an opportunity for people to really get creative. So say, for example, I'm really loving Bernard's background, yeah? So if he was hosting an event with 20 people, and you know, and that's his background, and people can be having a virtual safari, and you know, still zooming in the rest of the world. So I think what I would ask of event planners is just be creative and work with the hotels to design great experiences for the guests.
Okay, and I think in addition to that, allow me to add it from an events perspective, is just, I know that a lot of event companies that we talked to, even talked to a lot of the associations that we're in, we are excited and ready and willing to, you know, make the experiences really amazing for the guests that are coming. So, I mean, some of the things that we're hearing in terms of what you're offering as innovative, I remember speaking to Agile, and I guess we're pressed for time, but this didn't come up. The audiovisual aspect of things in terms of contactless equipment, where you can be able to control a projector using your phone, and you know, mics that don't necessarily need, you know, contactless, and the cleaning around it. Same thing for an Ashipai and Sarova, just listening to a lot of the thought through the contact points. That's important because it's a key selling point for us. Being open to and collaborating with us to think about bush conferencing. You know, it doesn't have to, we're hearing that it's best if it's outdoors and people get vitamin D in the process. So we're just saying we're available to create those experiences with you and for you. Mine is to thank you for coming and allowing us to host this. Taking aside your time, 2 hours of your time today, in fact more for those who had to log in earlier, to just really take us through step by step what you're doing, the methodology, you know, the detail of what you put into it. I think we have final thoughts. Do you have any questions that, and I'm sure you've been looking at the chat panels that have been taking place, even as you close, and I'll allow each of you to just say a final, you know, closing statement. If you've seen anything in the chats that you'd also like to address as well, feel free to take this time to address it as well. And I will start with, let's start with Bernard, because now he's outnumbered.
Yeah, I was just reading through some of the comments, and I know I answered one. Somebody asked about festive in December and how that's going to be managed, and I touched on it. Basically, it's washing hands or disinfecting, managing the numbers and managing the space between different people, ensuring that the staff are tested and COVID-free, and also managing access by individuals by monitoring temperatures. So we will not have, I do not anticipate a situation where White Sands, for example, with 340 rooms, will be 340 room full. Obviously, as we go along, we learn a little more about COVID-19 and how to manage it. But at this point in time, I can tell you the number of people that we can take then will be restricted, which essentially means then that not everybody will be able to access the facility at a time. If you go into the dining area, for example, you may not have the seating that was there. It definitely is going to be restricted as well. So COVID is one of those things that's going to change the way in which we do our business. So we need to learn it. We need to know what we need to do to ensure that it does not negatively affect the future of our business. This is one of those things that changes the trajectory of many situations and many businesses.
Right.
Yeah, so somebody else has asked about traveling and convincing that hotels are taking precautions. You will see the signage, you will see the markings, you will see the different presentations on our social media handles about what we're doing, because it's all there. The videos, these are not acted videos, these are real videos. These are things that are being done. So, and expect that to be done constantly and consistently across all the properties.
Thank you. So, Aja?
I don't like following Bernard or Wanjari. I prefer being first because they answer everything so perfectly. Yeah, I've been reading this chat a lot, and I can tell that, and myself as well, we're all very cautious because even if we get it and we're young and we're healthy, we probably have family or someone that if we may infect them, it wouldn't be the best of ideas. So we want to be as careful as we possibly can. Having read everything and listening to everyone is saying, we just need to know that we are taking all the precautionary matters that we possibly can. We are also being as careful as we possibly can, and not just from a management perspective, but all of our staff are trained. Everyone knows exactly the danger of what is happening. It's a worldwide pandemic. So we're not the only people being affected by this. So every day, everything I said today could be completely overturned if we find something better tomorrow, you know? So just knowing that we will always be striving to do better. And until we completely control this, you can only expect the best from us. And that's the entire industry at whole, not just Tribe and Trademark. I think we're all learning from each other. We have discussions like this all the time. I remember when COVID first started and when Jerry and I were having a chat about how to keep our businesses going. We were talking to each other as well, just to make sure that we can do the best possibly for the industry.
Yeah, and you're right. We do have to collaborate. I don't think there's one thing that COVID has shown us is that no man is an island. So even within sectors, we're definitely going to have to work together to get through this. Wajay.
I think for me, it's just to reassure guests that hotels have taken this seriously. And not just in Nashipai, even just listening to the other two panelists, it's like we've been in the same management meetings and discussing the same things. So hotels have taken this thing seriously. We've been closed. Some people have been really affected by their closures. So we've taken it seriously, and we're not joking around with the sanitization processes. So that's the one thing I'd like to just reassure guests is that, feel free to go out to the hotels, take time to do some research on the hotels, so that you know that you're going to a hotel that is taking it seriously, like Sarovers and the Trademarks and Tribe and Nashipai, of course. So please come. And I think this would be a time where if you were looking for some curated experiences, this is a time to start discussing with the hotel around this, because we're going to be more open to personalizing your experiences. So I think if you have been looking to experience a certain hotel, this is the time to go. And this is the time to lay out all your requests in advance, because I can assure you we're going all years.
And thank you. And I can see a lot of people now signing out and saying, thank you. This has been interesting. This has been informative. I feel like a lot of people, I saw Kunali especially asking the question like 3 times, how will we feel safe? My husband and I, if we book. So I feel like now that she's saying thank you, it was informative. I feel like we really maybe made her feel comfortable enough to book at one of the spots. Again, I'd like to thank you so much for giving us your time, for agreeing to have this discussion. This is what collaborations are. This is how it begins. And we'll definitely be talking about how to work behind the scenes and maybe create something different, virtual tours or things like that, that allow even those people who've been locked out to interact with the brand some more. We are going to share your handles, which we have been doing online. Thank you so much. And we appreciate each and every one of you and for making time for us. Thank you to every single person who's tuned in, put in the time to listen to this conversation. We hope that we answered your questions. If we didn't, please send us a private messages and still ask us more questions. We're happy to reach out to each of the brands and put you in contact with any of them should you need any clarification. Asante sana. I shall release you to go into your Fridays and your weekend. So from us at Urban Live, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Remember, you can staycation, vacation right here. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, and thanks, Melissa. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.